So here are 5 books I wish I had at the beginning of my journey into Celtic spirituality. Now I will say that I actually have 7 books for you. But the reason I've written 5 is because 2 of them I don't have. And I will just start off by saying the word Celtic is rather problematic when used to describe so many different tribes in so many different areas over a long time period. I've got a whole video on this subject, as well as a podcast with a historian and expert on Celtic spirituality, which I suggest you dive into after this video. So are you ready to dive into the 5 books that I wish I had at the beginning of my journey? Let's go. These are the books we're going to talk about today. So the first book is called Celtic Fairy Tales and Legends by Rosalind Kirvin. And a reason that it's great to look at fairy tales, legends and folklore is because they give us an insight into how the people thought and felt about the magical world, the natural world. Because in the past we would associate aspects of the natural world with divine elements because we understood it to be divine. In my opinion, humans are naturally animistic, which means that we believe that all things are animate in spirit. And this book has got a lovely range of Celtic stories from ancient Britain and Ireland. This particular story is called The Secret World of the Seals and is from Scotland. The first story in the book is from Wales, where I'm from, and is called The Sorceress and the Poet, which is, in my opinion, a story of shamanic initiation and awakening. The next book is called, oh my goodness, I pulled my bookmark out. And if you're interested, my bookmark is actually some beech tree bark. Yes. The second book is Fire in the Head, Shamanism and the Celtic Spirit by Tom Cohen. So I absolutely love this book because it dives into the core shamanic aspects that you see all around the world and then looks back into the Celtic period and the Celtic cultures to see what shamanic aspects we perhaps had. Because just to talk about where I'm from in Wales, we don't have a specific word called shaman, but everyone in the world would have naturally had shamanic figures. So people who would have dived into the other worldly realms and spiritual realms, as well as supporting and guiding people in our realm. The next book is specifically Welsh. It is a translation of the Mabinogion. So the Mabinogion is made up of 4 branches, yes, inspired by tree branches, and it is the oldest scripture of Welsh spiritual wisdom traditions, really. The first story in the Celtic Fairy Tales book is actually written from the original story that's in here. So if you want to dive into some of the oldest poetic literary stories and folk tales and mythology and find out where the modern Welsh gods and goddesses come from, this is the book you need. The next book, the 4th book, is called If Women Rose Rooted by Sharon Blackie, The Journey into Authenticity and Belonging. Now this goes into women as priestesses, women as protectors of the land, the connection between the severing of humans and the earth in relation to us mistreating and disrespecting women, and the connection between these 2 things, but mainly from an Irish and Celtic mythological perspective. Then the 5th book is called, oh my goodness, it's a thick boy, Anne Carrow Gwyn, Sorcery and the Ancient Fairy Faith by Robin Artisan. Now I will admit I haven't read this whole book, but the first chapter blew my mind. It goes into depth on the Celtic fairy faith. It's a comprehensive journey into the heart of the true old ways, the inter-animistic way of encountering and reverencing the spiritual forces and persons who inhabit the sensual landscape of this world. And the first chapter that blew my mind is like an in-depth look at what the word fairy means in all ways. This is a very magical, mystical book, as they all are. And the 2 books that I haven't got behind me are old books. So one of them is written in 1800s and the other is written in the early 1900s. And the first one is called The Fairy Faith in Celtic Countries by Walter Evans Wentz. And the second one is called British Goblins by, I'm going to write his name by here. And they are both kind of focused on Wales, but also Ireland, Scotland, and the rest of the British Isle. But these are stories from real life accounts of people talking about fairies, goblins, mythical creatures that they encountered, and they are phenomenal because this, especially in the Celtic fairy faith in Celtic countries, Walter went to all of the oldest people in the furthest away places and asked them what their grandparents knew about fairies. So if you go to Ireland today, people still will not mess with fairy trees. Like, there are roads for cars built around fairy trees because the fairy faith is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, spiritual understanding, I guess, that we have of our ancestors on these lands. Now, I am aware that the books that I've just spoken about are primarily talking about the Celtic lands of Britain and Ireland, but this is why the term Celtic spirituality is quite problematic. Again, I said if you want to go into that, you can watch the video listed above. And if you have got any books you would love to recommend, please drop them in the comments. I have so many more books, but I cannot fit them all into one video. I wanted to make this short and sweet so that you guys could just get a little synopsis of each one and move along and choose which one you're gonna purchase next. Awen, guys. Mwah.